I'm part of the academics team here at Humanitarian Global, and I'm joined in with Brian, who's going to also introduce himself. And then also we'll have a chance to just give 1 minute for our trainer to introduce herself, but then she'll come later on to be able to take over the session. So with that, allow me to bring on board Brian to just.
Hello, everyone. I hope you can hear me. As Sheilah has mentioned, my name is Brian, part of the Humanitarian Global Technical Team that ensures that this event is a success. So thank you very much for joining, and we look forward to a resourceful event.
Good. Thank you so much for that. I would want to say hi to people who have been able to send their greetings on chat. We have Professor Solomon Musa Tafa from Nigeria. We have Shadrach Toh from South Sudan. Welcome. Eriko is talking about we need to rectify the mute button. I think that's because we will give you a chance to speak later on. So we will be able to activate the mute button then. And then we have Alucine from Sierra Leone. Welcome. We have John Paul from Uganda, Justin Ayuku from Uganda, and also Mohammed from Yemen. So thank you everyone for being able to find the time to be able to join this session. So Linda, please introduce yourself.
Thank you, Sheilah. I hope everyone can hear me.
Yes.
Okay, so my name is Linda Obura. I am a project management expert with a background in biochemistry, and I moved into project management and public health. And so through my experience, I have learned to write proposals. I have learned about resource mobilization, and today I am happy to be able to share. And I hope everyone will be able to learn something from what we're going to share for the next 1 hour.
Great. Thank you so much, Linda, for that. And I'm sure you are up and ready to be able to give us a few knowledge and bits and tips. Someone is saying my voice is freaking. I don't know. I'm sorry about that, Bishar. I hope we can all hear me. We have Lawrence from Nigeria. We also have Dennis from Uganda, Lemba from Uganda, Alfred from Tanzania. Welcome. We have Abdallah from Nairobi. And then you also have Dave, Kenya, and then Mohammed Elmi from Somalia. You didn't hear your name. Welcome, Mohammed. Thank you so much for that. With that, we also have Friday Simbaya. I'm sounding low. I hope now you can hear me. Or Linda, yes. Linda, kindly work on your mic so that now when you get to present, someone your voice is a bit low. And then Yasin from Ethiopia, and then Shira from Somalia, and then Dixon from Kenya. So try to be able to bring in shout out from people so that you can know that you're not alone and everyone is here. Edward, thank you for joining, and then Idris as well from Sierra Leone. So I'd like to give you what we have in store at Humanitarian Global coming soon. Thank you, Stella from South Sudan. So we have an upcoming training here at Humanitarian Global, and it is what we call writing winning proposals for donor-funded projects. So this is a program that will be starting on the 29th of July to the 2nd of August. And that is why we want you to get to learn. So a lot of things that you will be learning today will just be the tips and bits of what we have in store. So find time to be able to register for this course, especially if you want to know more about what happens in proposal writing. The main objectives in this training that you're going to be doing is just to be able to understand what project management or project development is all about and how does proposal writing come in. We'll also get to learn about the different components of a proposal. How are you able to organize a very good proposal? We'll also learn practically how to write an effective proposal according to the different donor requirements and guidelines that have been put across. Then we'll also get to look at what are some of the M&E frameworks that we can be able to incorporate even when we're doing a proposal. Then finally, we will get to know how to write good quality reports that are tailored to a target audience. Now, the good thing about it is we will be able to touch a bit on report writing, but then again, we usually have every first Saturday of the month, we usually have report writing classes. So please also find time to be able to join that class so that now you can get to learn more about report writing. So I'm trying to give you a bits and bits of two programs in one. So we have proposal writing that goes for 1 week. And then we also have report writing that is a 1-day training once a month. And now in proposal writing, we'll get to look at what donor requirements are, look at some of the donors that we have in place, what are their requirements. We'll look at the different formats that they've put in place. We'll also get to look at how do we bring in the aspect of conceptuals, and how do you do a pitch deck, and then what are the very main components of a funding proposal. Then from there, we will get to now go to the nitty-gritties of writing a proposal, from introduction to problem statement all the way to budget. That now everything is just incorporated into one. And then finally, we will now get to look at what are some of the common mistakes that we have when you're writing proposals, and get to really give you what are some of the tips for successful proposal writing, and be able to do one practical proposal writing that you can be able to also use it maybe in future. So that is a very intense 1-week training that happens from the 29th to 5th of August. So make a point to register for that training. There's a link that has been shared on chat. So just click on it. It's very easy. Click on it, give us your details, and then we will be able to assist you from there. But then again, also, if you're not able to, please just drop us on the Q&A chat, or on the chat, sorry. Please just send your details, and then one of us will be able to get in touch with you and be able to give you more details on the course in itself. So that's pretty much it. I would want you to also use the chat feature on, I think, yeah, I've seen there are 2 questions that are in. Please use the chat feature to give comments or clarifications, and then use the Q&A feature to be able to ask any questions that you might have based on what the trainer will be taking us through. She might not be able to really see if your hands are raised or anything, but then once she's done, you will give at least 5 or 6 people to be able to ask questions live. But then also we'll also take some time to be able to ask the questions that are on the chat feature. So with that, I think we are ready for class. I want to say hi to Dixon. Yes, we will share the recordings afterwards, plus the presentation. Hi, Abane from Ethiopia, and Abdulazim from Ghana, and Derek from Zimbabwe. And Ilham, good morning. Carlton, yes, we will share this link to your email, definitely. But then again, Carlton, please share with us your email and your phone number, and then we will be able to give you a call after the webinar. So with that, guys, I want us to welcome on board Linda. You can use any of the reactions that are there to just make her feel at home and know that you are all here and ready to listen to her. So either use a thumbs up or just wave, that Linda can be able to come on board and give us or train for us what she has.
Let's just start. I've tried to switch on my camera. I'm told you've disabled that too, but it's okay, we can continue. So anyway, for today's session, for the next about 40 minutes, I should be able to take us through fundamentals of proposal writing, and a bit about, as we do the fundamentals, we'll just be thinking about how do we get to understand our audience, how do we also get to understand what their needs and our needs are, and what are the intersectionalities of what their needs are, what our needs are, and how do we collaborate to be able to actually write winning proposals, or collaborate to be able to resource mobilize in terms of whether it's funds, in terms of resources or infrastructure. So for today's session, we'll just be going through the basics of proposal writing, tips of how to do proposals, and then fundamentals of writing proposals. How do we map our audience? And our audience here is the donor and probably the proposal life cycle. So what do we say, or rather, what do we mean when we are talking about proposals? What are proposals and why do we write proposals? Basically, we say that proposals are written documents or a pitch trying to address a specific issue, whereby we as the people who are implementing projects, or as the organization which is implementing projects, should be able to identify a specific issue or a problem, or better still say that our development partners or our donors have identified a problem and they have requested for proposals. So in response to the proposals, we come up with a document trying to specify what solution we are giving to the problem and how we are going to accomplish and achieve the solution we are proposing for the problem. So we do proposals to be able to resource mobilize. And as I had mentioned, resource mobilization can be request for funding, and the request for funding can be solicited where we are responding to a request for proposals, or it can be unsolicited where we are proposing to a certain identified donor or identified development partner whose needs and our needs actually intersect. So then we can be writing a proposal, an unsolicited proposal to that particular donor. When we talk about writing proposals, there's a lot we need to do before the request for proposals or before replying in response to a request for proposals. So we need to go through something we are calling a roadmap. So as an organization, you need to know what is it that you want to achieve with your proposal, or rather, what solution are you offering to the problem that you have identified. So we position ourselves by knowing exactly what it is we want to sort out, what is the problem we are trying to sort out, what is the solution we are coming up with, who are the development partners, who are the donors in that space, who is our audience, who do we want to reach out to be able to fund us or actually support us to be able to implement a solution to a problem. So when we are looking at positioning, we would want to meet our clients, if possible, if we can meet them, to be able to cultivate a relationship and be able to look at what are the potential areas of congruence between us and whoever audience we are talking about, or whoever audience we have identified through our intelligence that can be able to work with us, that can be able to fund us. In the process of positioning ourselves, we also look at what are the success stories, who has implemented what we're trying to implement before, have we implemented the same thing before, and do we have case studies that show that this, whatever we are implementing, or rather whatever the solution we are offering, is actually something that can work. You need to understand what the client requires, and if by client, I mean our audience, and our audience is basically development partners or donors in our sectors, in our fields of work. We need to be able to understand what are the requirements of the request for proposals, if any. If not, are we going to comply, or are we going to utilize our own outline as if it is an unsolicited proposal? Do we understand the local context of where we're going to be implementing? Have we looked at what is available through our intelligence? Do we have the technical and do we have the technical skills as an organization to be able to implement the solution we are offering? Who are our team leaders? What are the success stories that we want to give to be able to support or to be able to justify our proposal? What mobilization are we going to do? If it is in a community, are we going to mobilize the community gatekeepers? Have we already gotten the community buy-in? Do we have ownership from the communities that we're going to be implementing in? Do we have experience to be able to implement whatever it is that we are proposing to implement? Have we had any industry recognition? Do we have references? Do we have endorsements to be able to justify or just support our need or our expertise in being able to implement the solution we are offering? To be able to submit your proposal, you need to review and see if your proposal actually makes sense. We need to be able to review the outline. Does it reflect what is required from the request for proposal? Is there quality in whatever information we're giving? Have we backed up our proposals with data? most recent data, most recent statistics? Have we been able to compare that data with other data that is available? If it is a case study, for example, are you comparing to the case study that has been done before? So before you submit your proposal, you need to be able to understand all those things and ensure there's consistency and quality in your proposal. Once we have submitted, we may have to go back to our development partners or our donors to be able to do a presentation if they have asked for one. How then do we negotiate for the funding, if it is funding? How do we rope in or bring in our development partners or our donors to be able to look at what have we been doing, how can we present our work, how can we present previous successful stories that we've had for the same solution we are offering to that problem. Or even if it's not for the same solution we are offering, just to be able to show the other pieces of work that we have been doing so that we can be able to show that we are capable of implementing whatever solution we are offering for the problem. When we're writing the proposal, there's usually the proposal life cycle, which I have mentioned before. So the proposal life cycle entails the time from which the proposal is requested for until when we sign an award to be able to say that we have actually submitted our proposal, it was successful, it has been funded, and we have signed the contract, we have been awarded. Normally, there is call for proposals, then we go into proposal development, and in proposal development, we actually write the proposals. The proposals can be written in terms of a conceptual framework, a proposal outline, include a logical framework, ensure there is the budgeting, ensure there is the monitoring and evaluation in your proposal. And then with this, we do the donor mapping. So today we will handle our content as per what is shown on that slide. We look at what do we do in call for proposals, how do we do the proposal development, what is it that we mean with conceptual framework, a proposal outline, the logical framework, which most oftenly we call logic model, and then budgeting, and then look at how do we actually do donor mapping, how do we identify our audience, how do we reach out to our audience, what is important, what is not important. So in the proposal life cycle, as I had mentioned, it is the time from which we start with actually identifying the opportunity. Request for proposals, if for example, sometimes we don't respond to requests for proposals, as I had mentioned, it means then we have identified a problem, we have seen an opportunity to offer a solution, and we want to write a proposal. Then we go into the bidding once we have written the proposals. There's always the risk assessment that we go through. Does it make sense to invest in that solution, or how does it help our organization? How does it position us? Is it a risky affair? Is it low? What is the risk with whatever solution we're offering? How do we prepare our proposals? While preparing proposals, you need to get the team that is going to help you to prepare the proposals. Sometimes we would want to implement our solution with a partnership with other partners. So who are the other partners? Are we going to work with sub-awarding other partners? Are we going to look at getting into a consortium of sorts? So we need to understand that. How do we review our proposals? How do we submit? Contract review, as I had mentioned. When we talk about project lifecycle, we are talking about up till the end where we are signing our contract. And then how do we document our lessons learned during the process of writing the proposal? So the cyclic diagram there just shows from positioning to proposal development, and then submittal and award, where we actually sign the contract that we have been funded. So when we look at the pre-writing process, we look at, do we actually understand what our client needs? And client here is, who is our audience? What does the client want if it is a request for proposals? Have you attended any sessions with the client to be able to understand what their needs are? Have you discussed your thoughts, your questions, your ideas with the client? What are some of the solutions you're trying to offer, and what are their requirements? What is the donor's requirements of you? Have you been able to have a session with them? Do you understand what they want? Have you done your research? And in research, I mean, have you read about either if it is statistics, if it is data? Have you been able to find out what are the relevant points or words that you need to write in your proposal? As an organization, what is your position? Do you add value? Do you bring value to the table, to the solution that you're offering? Is your solution actually a value addition, either to society or to the community we are working in? Where is the comparative advantage as an organization? Are you in the right area? Are you implementing something that is off your actual priorities as an organization? You need to find out that. And then when we go into the proposal development team, you need to find out, do we have a defined structure for the proposal team? Who are the members that you'd like to bring into your proposal development team? Are they just a few, or you need to have everyone in the team? I always advise that when you're doing the proposal, you need to have people from the program or project. You need to have people from the finance team. You need to have people from the monitoring and evaluation team who have complementing roles and functions in your organization to be able to ensure you come up with a proper proposal. And when you're coming up with the members who you need to involve in the proposal development, you need to focus on clear functions, ensure their roles and responsibilities are very clear for them, precise, and so that everyone knows what's their role in actually developing this proposal to completion. And this helps us to be able to ensure that we save up on time and we assure, or rather we ensure that we have compliance in terms of what the requirements of the request for proposal are. So as you're developing your team, just as I had mentioned, you need a very strong team so that you can be able to properly conceptualize what the issue is and what solution you're offering. Everyone has their specific roles in the proposal development team, and you need to ensure that you've set up your meetings properly. You have looked at what are everyone's responsibilities in those meetings. How is everyone going to work collaboratively to make sure that the proposal can be written in time and in compliance to the requirements of the request for proposal? So when we get to the conceptual framework, this is where we are looking at what is it exactly we are writing or proposing as the solution to the problem. How do we visually represent the technical approach to our problem? It informs and guides us on what our approach is. And once it guides us on what our approach is, we are able to ensure that when we are doing the proposal, we have included all the information that we need to back up why and justify why we are actually proposing the solution to that problem. It helps us to identify and formulate the problem and the opportunity, which is the solution I've been talking about. It helps us to come up with smart objectives. And I know all of us in our areas of work or in all our sectors, we have been able to understand what smart means. So we need to come up with very specific, very measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-bound objectives. So if you have overall objectives, if you have sub-objectives, ensure that they are smart. They are objectives that can be measured. They are objectives that are time-bound and they're very realistic. And then you go down into writing activities. These activities are pointers to how you're going to achieve or you're going to implement your overall objectives. What are your goals? And then finally, you come up with what is the outcome, or rather, what are the results of the activities that you are going to implement as per your specific goals and objectives. And then when we are talking about the problem and the solution, you need to look at what is the scope of work when you're trying to identify the problem. What are the existing needs? Are there any research or statistics? Is there anything that has been done before that will help you to justify the solution to the problem that you are proposing? When we come to the solution, we are looking at who are the targets, who is the target audience, for example. Are you implementing a young women project? Are you implementing an economic empowerment project for women? Who is the target group? Where will it be implemented, and what is the time that you're going to implement the project or the program? So that's why we say when you're talking about SMART, we have time bound. And then how do we manage the process? How do we maintain whatever solution we are offering? We always talk about sustainability, sustainability, sustainability. That just means off from funding. If, for example, funding stopped today, how are you going to sustain your implementation? How are you going to ensure that your solution is quite sustainable without funding or post-funding? When we're writing our objectives, just as I had mentioned, this slide just shows us that SMART is specific, measurable, action-oriented is used interchangeably with attainable, and then realistic and time-bound. So how achievable are your results? Or rather, how achievable is your objective? How achievable is your goal? How achievable is your sub-objectives? How achievable are your activities? When we talk about realistic is also utilized interchangeably with relevant. So the solution you're offering to the problem also has to be relevant to the need. So when we talk about the audience and the need, you ensure that whatever it is you're proposing to implement is relevant to the problem, one, relevant to the target audience, two, and it is going to achieve the intended result as per what you are proposing in your proposal. And within the time that you have, or rather within the time that you're proposing to be able to implement. When we look at the technical approach, we're talking about what is it that you are going to achieve? How are you going to do it? What are all the requirements in the scope of work? I always talk about the five W's and 1H. We normally say in the project management world, we say five wives and one husband. So it's the why, the what, the where, the when, and then the husband is the how. So what will you do? When will you do it? How will you do it? So all those things when we're talking about the technical approach. Ensure that your approach is actually advantageous to your clients or to your development partner in terms of the cost. So there is cost savings, there is value addition, there is innovation, there is sustainability, and it actually describes the actual activities and services that are going to be implemented or delivered in whatever way you're going to deliver your proposal. And then finally, when you're writing your technical approach, ensure you show us what are the results you're proposing, or what do you foresee as the results of the project. If, for example, you're talking about a health-related project, it's a donor-funded program, it is for adolescent girls and young women, and it is for reduction of HIV infection, ensure that in your proposal, you either use a theory of change or logic model to be able to show us how you think your solution is going to lead us or is going to result into a reduction in HIV infection, for example, or an end or a reduction in child mortality if it is a maternal and newborn child health project. Tell us if it is a nutrition project, how do you think it is going to reduce the rate of malnutrition for children under 5? So when you're writing your proposal, ensure your technical approach is tight, and that technical approach will actually be showing us how you're going to move from your goals and objectives into your outcomes, which are definitely the results. So when we go into writing our proposals, the conceptual framework actually guides us to be able to show what exactly we want to do. Ensure that it is up to date. Ensure that you're looking at who is it that is supporting you to be writing reports? Do they have all the documentation? Do they have all the requirements for the request for proposal? So that then when you're writing, you're able to ensure that you keep going back to the request for proposals and that you are fulfilling the requirements of the proposal. Check the evaluation criteria and ensure that all the guidelines and whatever it is that you're putting in your proposal is relevant to what the development partner needs. Put in page limits for every section that you're going to be writing or including in your proposal, so that then you don't overdo with the information that you need to give, and ensure that you have very specific information as related to whatever solution you're trying to offer for a problem. When we look at the logical framework, as I had mentioned, the logical framework is mostly utilized to be able to plan and formulate your project. It gives us a logical flow or a logical link by what you mean from the problem you have identified, what is the solution you're offering, what are the goals and objectives for this solution, what are the inputs, what are the outputs that you require, how are you going to evaluate yourselves short-term, mid-term, and in the long term, and then finally, what is the outcome of the project and what are the impact, or rather, what is the overall impact of the project. It is a basic instrument that helps us to design, execute, follow up, and evaluate our actions. And it answers the question, why are we doing things the way we are doing them? It helps us to actually remain focused during implementation. So when you're doing your project, or rather your proposal, you always look at what is the logic model of this solution I am offering? What is the logic flow from the inputs into the outputs, into what the activities that come out from the goals and objectives, what are the outcomes, and what is finally the impact of the activities you have been implementing. When we come to budgeting, we say that when you're doing your proposal, you have to ensure that you actually give us an estimate or actual cost of what your project is going to cost. Normally, we do a lot of negotiations when you're doing budgeting, because then if you're giving actual costs, it means that by the time the contract is being awarded, you need to have understood or known if there's any inflation or reduction in prices. So then you give us an approximate figure of about plus or minus whatever it is the requirements are for your request for proposal. So when you're doing a costed proposal, you have to ensure that you're giving the best value for your audience, one, and two, you have understood the project requirements. What resources do you need? Is there any level of effort in terms of human resource? Ensure that there is transparency, and this is done through ensuring that when you're doing your budget is quite detailed and you have verified the costs that are needed for that specific budget, so that then when you're defending your budget, you have everything in the budget very well detailed as direct costs and indirect costs for your budget. After looking at the basics of proposal writing, then we look at how do we actually identify our audience. And for us in proposal writing, the audience is normally the donor or the organizations that give grants, or the development partners that we work with. I think nowadays we are moving from calling them donors into calling them development partners. So why do we do donor mapping? Why do we, what is it that we mean when we talk about donor mapping? Why do we map donors? Why do we do donor research and prioritization? How can we put these donors that we have mapped into a directory and then utilize it to be able to actually get donors that we can write to for proposals, or that we can utilize their requests for proposals to actually send out proposals. So we do donor mapping, or we say donor mapping is actually researching to identify your potential donors. It can be for funding, it can be for resource mobilization generally, where resource mobilization can be actual money, and it can actually be resources or infrastructure to be able to help you implement a solution to a specific problem that has been identified by you or by the potential donors. So we do donor mapping to be able to aid our prioritization and engagement. Remember, we were talking about how do we understand the needs of our audience? How do we understand our audience? So for us to be able to understand our audience, we have to do donor prioritization and engagement. We have to understand existing and future funding opportunities that are aligned to our specific priorities. And for us to do that, we need to actually research on our potential donors. We also do donor mapping to be able to diversify our funding streams. Remember, I was talking about sustainability when we were doing our proposals. Generally, we have to ensure that we are very sustainable with whatever solution we are offering post-funding. So we need to understand who are the donors that can be able to either continue funding us, or how can we diversify our funding streams for us to be sustainable as an organization. We also do donor mapping to be able to build our relationships, network, ensure that our donor base is quite broad so that then we have options, or we have collaborative networking options to be able to resource mobilize. And then we also do donor mapping to ensure that the decisions we are making on where to invest our time, where to invest our money, where to invest our resources actually make sense. So when we look at the fundamentals of proposal writing, when we look at understanding our audience, donor mapping is a key component of actually understanding your audience. We do donor mapping by one, understanding our priorities. What are our priorities as an organization first? Once we understand our priorities, then we will be able to begin to find out which are other donors or development partners that align to our priorities. What are our parameters? What is the criteria and matrices for understanding or for knowing or picking donors? When we're doing donor mapping, we need to develop a tool in our organization to be able to collect data. And the data and information that we are collecting should be able to influence or show that we are looking at priorities that actually align with our priorities in our organization. Ensure that you do proper research for your donors, summarize and prioritize the opportunities that you have identified in your research. And that is why in the point number 2, we are talking about developing a tool that is actually accessible by everyone in the organization, and everyone can be able to key in information that they get from the research that they are doing. Nowadays, I see organizations have level of effort or human resource for resource mobilization. So how possible is it for the whole team to be able to be identifying the opportunities that are coming in, and actually putting in the data in the document or the tools that we have come up with to be able to capture details for the donors that we are actually looking for. So you can utilize the online automatic tools, for example, the Google Sheets, where in case someone is working on it, we can be able to see what we are working on as a team together at the same time. And it is actually automatically updated. So when you're looking at your criteria to look at your donor or to actually identify your audience, you need to look at what are the key thematic focus areas for your donors, or rather for the development partners that you're mapping. What are their activities? Do those thematic areas actually align with our thematic areas? Where are they implementing? What are their geographical focus areas? Are they wanting, or will they be expanding their projects? Do they have any expansion prospects? What are your short-term, medium-term, or long-term funding targets? What are your resource mobilization needs? Do these donors actually give unrestricted or restricted funding? And when you talk about unrestricted funding, we're talking about funding that you have been given by a donor and you do not have to account for everything. You can do whatever you want with that money. Restricted funding is very specific, and restricted funding is limited to what you had signed off on your contract, and you can only implement whatever it is, the activities that you actually put in your proposal. Are there any new innovations to explore from the development partner? What types of donors are we looking at? Are they the big donors? I know we usually have a way of segregating or grouping donors as per how they fund our projects. So what types of donors are we looking at? Who are our current donors? We actually start from the current donors to be able to network to other donors. Who are their peers? What are the no-go areas of your funding policies? As an organization, we have funding policies. Are we doing a maternal child health project? Are we going to be getting funding from an organization that has been known for child labor? Of course not. So what are the no-go areas for you as an organization? Would you want to get funding from a terrorist based organization? Find out from your organization what are the no-go areas for you as per your funding policies. When we talk about research and prioritization, we look at what or who are our current existing donors, who are their partners, how can we be able to network with them? Is there any competitor funding sources? Who are our peers at the same level? Vertically, who can we work with? Horizontally, who can we work with? We need to find out. Are we able to do internal stakeholder mapping exercise in terms of in our organization as a team? What brainstorming can we do in terms of donors, in terms of development partners? Do we have resources to be able to pay for these databases that we're seeing here? Some of the NGO common portals and databases are actually paid for. Are we as an organization in a position to be able to pay for them so that then we can be able to identify other donors who we can network with, one, who we can check, or rather who we can identify if they have funding opportunities or if not immediately, in the near future. And then once you have done your research and have been able to find out and actually network, you have reached out to the donors, you have been able to see areas of alignment or areas of collaboration or areas of working together, then you're able to prioritize your donors as per your research. And you prioritize your donor according to what are your current and what are your future priorities. We normally say that your perfect match for development partners or donors or audience usually shows a very high rating and synergy against all your criteria. Remember the criteria we were talking about. These are the things you need to consider. What are their key thematic areas? Where do they implement any expansion? What are your short-term, medium-term, or long-term priorities as an organization? So if you see the highest rating and synergy against your criteria, then you are coming up with a prioritized list for your audience. Remember the document I was talking about as a tool that we can utilize to be able to identify our audience. Once we identify our audience, we can map it out in this kind of template. This is just an example of a template. So in the first column, we have donor name. They could be current or prospective. We need to identify that too, or decide as an organization, do we want to reach out to them now or it's a future prospect? What is their website? Status just means, have you contacted that audience or not? Is there an opportunity for funding? Is there a request for proposal? If there's a request for proposal, have you applied? Has it been rejected? Has it been awarded? Are we awaiting response or anything? So the status there. Then description of focus area, that is, what is their theme, what thematic area or what therapeutic area are they focusing on? Where are they working geographical area? What is the opportunity? Is there a request for proposal coming currently or future? Priority, do you need to reach out to them immediately? Is it urgent? Is it high priority or low priority? Who is the directly responsible individual? Here we mean in your team, in your organization, or in the resource mobilization department, who is the DRI for that specific organization. Sometimes we see relationships have been built and some particular donors prefer to work with particular individuals in the organization. So then as an organization, do you choose that person as the directly responsible individual? Then what are the next steps? If we had applied at status in response to the request for proposal, then when we come to the next steps, we say we are awaiting response, or this organization will be contacted in the next 6 months, or we'll set up a meeting with them to be able to understand what are the requirements in the request for proposals, or we will invite them to one of our launch activities or to one of our monitoring and evaluation progress reporting events, so that they can be able to understand the organization well, and that we can also be able to understand each other. And then, is there a particular deadline, and who is the person to be contacted for that specific organization? Do we have the contacts for that organization? Do we have their phone numbers? Do we have their emails? Under next steps, we can share an online newsletter of the organization, share, for example, success stories from the organization for a past project. So this is just a sample directory for our audience, and the sample directory can be different in terms of what your needs are as an organization. So finally, once you have looked at who your audience is, you have actually understood what their priorities are vis-a-vis what your priorities are, and you have looked at what their needs are at that moment. If their needs are or have come in form of a request for proposals, then what next for you? So what next for such a situation would be to respond to the request for proposals. RFPs are sometimes called calls for proposals. Then we start drafting our proposals as per the fundamentals I had mentioned when we started the session today. So is it just a concept note that you need to submit, or is it a full proposal that you need to submit? Are there any networking meetings that you need to set up? Are there any roundtable thematic discussions that you need to set up? Do you want to invite them for program events? Do you want to send introductory emails with organization information? Remember, I was mentioning about a newsletter. Do you have, do you need to assign responsibilities with specific timelines to specific individuals to be able to ensure that they can pick from response to RFPs and call for proposals? Ensure that when you're looking, or when you're doing your donor mapping, when you're identifying your audience, keep it simple, precise, and concise. Find out if you have resources. If you don't have time, do you need to get a person who is specifically going to do the identification of your audience and is going to ensure that you're able to identify opportunities that align to your priorities? What are the practical and accessible tools that you can utilize? How do you put in alerts and reminders to be able to remind the team to either do a brainstorming session, do a research for organizations or audiences that cater for our needs or that align to our needs, and then ensure that it is a process that can be followed up with direct responsibilities and people to update. And then ensure that you build your networks, you build your relationships. Only then are you able to actually understand your audience, understand their needs, aligning with your needs, and be able to do or write winning proposals.
Thank you so much, Linda, and I'm happy to see that a lot of us have learned a lot. It apparently it has come in at the right time in our different activities and all that. So I would want us to, I know our time is much gone, but allow me to just take like 5 minutes where I'll ask the questions that are on the Q&A, and then we will get to maybe have one of us to be able to also ask the question live. And as I look who has their hands up, I think if you can answer for us, Linda, what's the difference between proposal for research and proposal for intervention? What is the difference between proposal for research and proposal for intervention?
Okay,
Linda?
so I would say proposal for research. I would use an actual example, and I think an example that speaks to all of us. So in the wake of COVID-19, if we can all remember, none of us quite understood what disease is this, where is it coming from, how can we manage, what is the treatment like, what resources do we need, how are we going to actually avoid the spread of the disease. So if we are doing a proposal for research, someone would be coming in to say, we need to do a clinical trial to kind of understand the disease itself first. So that's a proposal for research. So we're looking at understanding something. So we want to do a research on it to be able to understand what disease is this all about, what causes the disease, what are the interventions that we can actually utilize to be able to stop the spread of the disease. So that's research. So once the research is done, or alternatively, now I use a different example. I use like HIV specific example. So a lot of research has been done with HIV in terms of infection, disease management, treatment, and all that. So an intervention would be, a proposal for intervention would be, we know what influences the high rates of infection for HIV. So the intervention here would be either coming up with a training program for the specific cohorts to be able to train them on behavioral change and probably give them information on the disease. So that's a proposal for an intervention. I hope it's clear.
Okay. I hope so too. So I'm seeing, I'll ask two more questions. Cor is asking, which one comes first? Maybe short answers. Which one comes first? Need assessment, between need assessment and proposal writing. Which one comes first?
Needs assessment, then proposal writing. Yeah.
Oh, good. And then something else. Finally, before I invite Mohammed Baba to ask their question, how do you go about the requests that have a budget shared that they want to understand how much other donors are funding your project? How do you go about those
I didn't hear that very well, Sheilah.
How do you go about those requests that have budget shared that they want you to understand how much other donors are funding your project?
Okay, so there are requests for proposals that require us to share our budgets. Normally we say it is usually in part of actually doing due diligence, and it is important to actually share if you're having funding from other partners. Oftenly we say you can give approximate budgets. You don't have to go straight into the very nitty-gritty details of this is the budget for direct costs, indirect costs. So you can utilize approximation method to be able to say we have funding from other partners of about $1 million, $2 million, and stuff like that, just to be able to show that you're actually honest. Because in this day and age, there's a lot of pilferage in donor funds for other things. And that's why when they're doing due diligence, they like to find out what else are you receiving from which other donors and stuff like that.
Okay, that makes sense. And then let me allow Mohammed. Mohammed Baba, you can unmute and then you can ask your question. Mohammed Baba, are you able to speak? Your hand was up. Okay, as we wait for that, Edward Kathuthi. Yes, Mohammed. Mohammed, please ask your question. Hello.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm very much grateful for joining this program. My question is, what's the
Yes.
difference between proposal writing for project and that of donor request? I don't know if you have getting me.
Did you say proposal writing for?
We can't hear you, Mohammed. I don't know, maybe it's the internet. Maybe you can
I
check
said
on that.
the difference. Yes, the difference between project proposal for report and that for proposal for donor request.
Okay. What's the difference between a project proposal for research and proposal for donors?
Yes.
Linda.
So just as I had explained before, the one for research is trying to actually, we are doing some research on something, on a specific topic, on a disease, on a drug, we're doing research. We're trying to find out if it works, if it's medicine, if the medicine actually works. For projects, for funding, even the research proposals are usually funded. So you would be writing a proposal for your research to be funded by a research organization. For example, the Kenya Medical Research Institute. For example, ILRI, so you'll be writing a proposal for funding of your research.
Okay.
Sometimes the research comes in form of a project because then it is time bound. So there you will be saying you're looking for funding for your research project. Sometimes we are just, as an organization, implementing a specific project in a specific area. And so we're looking for funding for that specific project that we are implementing. And the reason for that project is not for research.
Okay, makes sense.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. And then allow me to bring on board Edward. Edward, please unmute and ask your question. Okay, we can't hear you. So maybe I can give Richard.
Sheilah,
Yes, Edward.
you can hear me, sorry. Yeah.
Yes, now I can hear you.
Yeah, my name is Edward from an organization called Hand in Hand in Eastern Africa. So mine was a suggestion. Maybe we can.
You're breaking. I don't know if it's me. I can't hear you.
The training on gift rates. Yeah.
Training on? Okay. Edward, I can't hear you, but I love the suggestion. Maybe you can type it in.
Hello.
Yes, Edward, now I can hear you.
Come.
I'm so sorry, Edward.
Okay.
I think I can't hear you, but
The
please.
suggestion was maybe
I can't hear you, Edward. I think you're starting and then you're breaking. So if you can type it in, please type it in on
so
chat.
that can.
Sorry, I think I can't hear it, Edward. I don't know if it's me.
Okay.
Okay, please just type it in, type it on chat or Q&A, and then I'll receive it and then I'll work on it. I still love the suggestion. Thank you so much. I think I'll give one lady to speak and then we can be able to do that.
Yeah.
Sarah. Okay. Thank you for that.
Yeah. Let me just type.
Okay, thank you, Richard. Let's have Richard. Richard, kindly speak, and then we'll have Sarah. Then finally have Sarah.
Yeah, thank you so much. My question is not different from the other question. Is today in today's global funding opportunity, you realize that there's a number of calls coming on research proposals, but also of humanitarian. These issues are all addressing almost similar thing. Is there that if you write a research proposal, but the process, you use the approach of implementation in terms when you are implementing a particular project like a GBV. As you are implementing this project, at the same time, you are collecting data and so on that specific areas. For example, gender issues. And if you realize there are a lot of issues related to gender, can you write a similar research proposal, but the approach will be different from the real data collection or research kind of approach? Is there something that can be modeled in that way?
I'm not sure I understood the question very well.
Can you use
Linda,
the same research, but having different, maybe this one was on gender and then the other one was on something else, but then you change the aspect of methodology. I think that's the question, Richard.
yeah.
Okay.
I'm not sure you can do that because the research questions would be different. Yeah, if you're doing one for health and the other one for gender, for GBV, for example, the questions and the methodology, okay, the methodology may be the same, but the research questions may be different. So you need to tailor make it to whatever specific area you're working on.
Okay. I think that's basically it. Let's try and make new things. If it's a new proposal, let's try and make it different depending on what you are trying to cover. Sarah, let's have your question.
Okay, thank you so much, Sheilah. Mine is just a small question. Like, do we have a template that is used to write a project proposal, or should be provided by the company or the organization?
Okay, so what normally happens is if there's a request for proposal, the organization or development partner or donor will give their specific outline to whatever type of template they want you to utilize. If you're doing an unsolicited proposal, then you need to ensure that you have a template or utilize the template that you have for your organization. But normally there are usually those very specific things that need to be put in the proposal.
Good. Thank you so much for that. I think our time has so much gone. There are some questions that are on the Q&A that Linda is currently answering. So please, if you still have any questions that are on chat, please, we'll be able to answer them even as we end the session. And I'm happy that we're having all these questions. Again, questions basing on what's the difference between proposal, concept note, project. Let's attend this at that. We'll be able to really learn a lot out of it. And maybe things like also budget constraints and financial considerations that we have, depending on the different donors. Please, it will be important that you attend the class. And also, what are the steps of writing a comprehensive proposal writing? We will definitely touch base on that during next week's, the other week, 29th of July to 2nd of August training. So do not miss out on this. Tapani will be able to answer your question even as we proceed on chat. So that now, because of time, you will allow us to end the session from there. But please take up our contacts, which are being shared on chat. So that now, in case of anything, please do reach out to us and we'll be able to assist you, as well as joining Discord. Discord is a very good social network platform that we get to engage with other participants and everyone else who are in the humanitarian space, and maybe they're passionate or they're gurus, for example, in proposal writing and aspects to do with anything resource mobilization as well as fundraising. So with that, allow me to end from there. Linda will be answering your questions as we move, and we really appreciate your commitment and the time in just helping us learn a lot from this. I will get in touch with you, Edward, on how we can include GIFT training on our upcoming training, so you can always be ready for that. And thank you all for those who say the presentation has been great and they will really want to learn more. For example, just being specific on project proposal on maybe WASH or project proposal on gender and all that. So please attend our training so that now we can be able to help you and assist you on this scene. Thank you, everyone, and have a wonderful day ahead to all of you, depending on where you are, if it's morning, afternoon, or even evening, and looking forward to seeing you in our upcoming training and also in our other activities that are scheduled at Humanitarian Global. With that, allow me to end there. Wish you well and goodbye.
In line with the United Nations 2015 Sustainable Development Goals, Humanitarian Global is an organization that aims to help humanitarian and development practitioners come closer to attaining the SDGs. As an organization, we are proud to be at the forefront of offering excellent training to humanitarian practitioners across the globe. Since its inception, Humanitarian Global has been able to train over 10,000 participants from more than 30 countries, and fortunately, the number keeps getting bigger.
I work for our national water and electricity company called NAWEC. I actually came across Humanitarian Global in the internet, and I was really interested when I found they could do some training on water sanitation and hygiene. Actually, I was pleasantly surprised because when I came here, the training material, the lecture guide and everything was extremely beyond my expectation, although it was very intensive and very, very tough. So every day I have to do a homework, which was really not easy. My expectations were met beyond imagination. The training was really detailed. The material and content were really wonderful, and I think everything was beyond my expectation. I've been given material, I've been given guidelines, and even this institution is trying to link me with people internationally who are interested in and doing what I am interested in doing also.
All our training programs are developed by experienced facilitators who have extensive field experience, as well as proven ability to coach, mentor, and support personnel in working environments. In addition to that, our learners can study at their own pace and time regardless of their schedule, since our courses are hosted on an e-learning platform that is accessible online. Through this platform, participants are able to interact with our skilled facilitators as well as other fellow participants. Meet one of our top WASH facilitators as he breaks down how we create our programs.
Definitely, I think Humanitarian Global is an institution that applies global standards in terms of humanitarian training, and that is the reason why participants coming from different countries can actually be able to feel very, very comfortable to be able to come into Humanitarian Global, find global standards, find global knowledge, find global skills, and global tools and techniques to be able to help them apply their profession in diverse organizations. So I think the choice of Humanitarian Global is surely the best bet they can have for humanitarian training.